Hello, hello, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me today. My name is Brian Traskos. I am Director of Education here at the Somatic Coaching Academy, and I'm so grateful you've taken a few moments from your day to do a little LinkedIn Live and Facebook Live and YouTube Live and wherever you're checking in with us right now. I really, really appreciate your time. And the theme for today is, listen, are you ready for more yet? So it's no surprise. Everyone is talking about kind of the the new current U.S. administration's rate of chaotic change that's going on right now, and the amount of upheaval that it's creating. And this isn't really a political kind of talk that we're having here. This is simply about change for a moment. Now, we're here at the Somatic Coaching Academy. We are all about change. Like change is critically important. Absolutely, change is critical. We actually, what we do here at the Somatic Coaching Academy is we help teach our students and help our clients make change easier so that they can get what they really want in their life, right? If we don't have something that we have in our life now, we need to do or change something in order to create what we want, right? So change is critical. Change is foundational to our evolution of who we are as humans and where we are going in the world. So change is really, really important. But with that said, there are healthy ways and there are destructive ways to go about creating change. Now, and that's because change in and of itself is a stressor, right? And that's true for even things we don't like, but also for things we actually do like. Change itself is a stressor, whether we want the change or whether we don't want the change, or whether we think we want the change or we don't want the change. Either way, stress creates an effect, an impact on our nervous system, right? Our whatever change is going on, our nervous system needs to be able to adapt to the change. I mean, that's basically kind of that's life, that's evolution. That's even think about athletic training. Think about anything we're doing in our life. We enact a change on our nervous system, and then our nervous system needs time to adapt to it in order to become stronger or more resilient, more adaptive to it. And this is true, again, even for healthy changes. So if we're starting an exercise program, it would be kind of silly to think I'm going to walk into a gym for the first time and try to lift the biggest bar or the biggest weights there. I'm going to hurt myself. Or I'm just starting a running program and I'm going to go out and run a marathon the first day. Probably not going to work out very well. It's also not going to work if I run every day, day after day after day after day after day, trying to increase my mileage each day, or if I go to the gym and I lift day after day after day and just trying to ramp up my weight every single day, it's still going to be a problem, right? So because I'm not giving my body time to adapt to the change, and over time that will create breakdown of the body. This is even for like healthy diet. I've worked with lots of people who want to clean up their diet, and so they make a change, and the change they make is very intense. They go from like being a meat eater or a multi kind of food eater to just doing juicing and just doing vegetables. And on the surface, you think, whoa, that would be great for the person to be healthy. But what it can do is release all this toxic load very quickly that's been built up in the body, and the person can become very sick. I've seen that several times. So again, whenever we enact any kind of change, our physiology needs time to adapt to the change in order for us not only to weather that change in a healthy way, but to be able to come out better on the other side of that change. So change itself, we have to kind of look at what happens. Now, interesting, we think about this. If we don't allow our bodies, our psychology, our emotional selves, the time to adapt to the change, that creates very adverse consequences for our not only our physical body, but for our mental states, for our mental emotional health. It becomes problematic. Right now, what the experts tell us is that 75 to 90% of all doctor's visits that happen in the US are directly related to unmanaged stress. So if you look back at your doctor's visits over the last year, the year before, and you look at 3/4 to 90% of them were directly related to unmanaged stress, whether you realize it or not. We're talking about cardiovascular disease. We're talking about diabetes flare-ups. We're talking about chronic pain. We're talking about even breathing difficulties like asthma, right? So all across the board, whatever you have going on, stress not only basically fosters disease. If it's chronic, it will also exacerbate whatever problem you have going on. So unmanaged, so here we go. So change is good if it's in certain doses. That's what we want to know. Both change and stress are actually really appropriate. We actually need stress also in order to adapt and become healthier. However, if it's too much, then our bodies break down, okay? So change creates stress, which is a good thing, again, in appropriate doses. Now, what we also know is that for us to be healthiest, well, what's the dosage? What's the ratio here of stress to recovery? Well, the minimum, here it is, the minimum ratio is 3 times more recovery than stress. 3-to-1 ratio. Whenever we have a stressful experience, we actually need to have 3 kind of recovery episodes in order to balance out that in our nervous system. If that scale starts to tip to too many stress episodes, then we create a disease in our system. Not only that, depression, anxiety, a whole host of mental emotional challenges also occur with that. Now, that's if we're actually living in a pretty safe environment, is that 3-to-1 ratio. If we're in an unsafe environment, let's say living in environments where there's a lot of crime, a lot of threat, poverty, not enough food, not enough heat, like shelter's poor, all that kind of stuff, it actually goes up to a 7-to-1 ratio of recovery to stress. And so it makes you realize, like, how do we ever catch up with this when it goes on like that? So let's just back up again for a second. Change is good in the appropriate doses. Change creates stress all the time. So change always creates stress, and stress is good in appropriate doses, and change is good in appropriate doses. So now let's kind of talk about what the doses are. We need to have like a 3-to-1 ratio. We need to have more recovery than stress episodes in order to not only have a healthy body, but to have a healthy mental, emotional state, to think clearly, to actually be able to be productive in the world. We need to have that balance. Let's just talk about change a little bit more. What's going on right now in the U.S., and of course this has global ramifications because the U.S. has so much interaction and interplay with every other country on the planet, right? That when there's unpredictability, when there's instability, when there's change going on at rapid fire pace, that trickles out all over the globe, and certainly right here in the US, which is where I live, which is where we're located with the Somatic Coaching Academy. And I just want to say again, it's not only change that we don't like. Right here on my screen in front of me, I have what's called the Life Change Index scale. And what this scale looks at is a whole bunch of common life events. And then what the researchers did with this scale is they gave each of these life events a rating. The top of the scale is 100, and the bottom of the scale here, the lowest one, is 11. So minor violation of the law creates like 11 kind of index points of stress or change scale. And the top is death of a spouse at 100, so 100 points up there. Now, those both sound like, oh, those aren't good things. Like, we wouldn't actually want those things to happen. Now, when we look at the scale, what it says is within a year, if you have any of these things that are on this scale come up in a year, you have to add up the number of points that the scale is connected to whatever it is the event is. And I'll read off some of these for you. And then you add them up. And if you have more than 300 points in a year, it predicts about an 80% likelihood that you're going to develop a significant illness in the very near future. Okay. The other, I'll just look at them right here too. If you're between 150 and 300 points, about 50% chance that you're going to develop a problem in the near future health-wise, and less than 150 points, about 30% possibility. But let's just kind of read off some of these things, because they're not all like bad things. These are just change indexes. So like getting married, for all intents and purposes, we feel like, oh, getting married should be a joyful event, right? But it's 50 points on this scale. So 50 points on the scale just for getting married. So let's talk about then like retirement. Retirement is 45 points. So you might think retirement's amazing, right? I'm gonna have all the time in the world to do whatever I want to do. But guess what? You just got hit with 45 stress index points by retiring. Gaining a new family member is 39, right? So that means like bringing a baby into your life, which should be, by all intents and purposes, really joyful. Guess what? You just got hit with 39 change index points. So this is a really fascinating scale. We're actually doing a podcast pretty soon on this at the Somatic Coach Academy podcast, so you can listen in for that, some more details. But the point I want to make right now, folks, is that the change itself, whether we judge it as being positive or negative, doesn't necessarily matter as much as how much change we're experiencing, and also on top of one another, and how predictable or unpredictable that change is. So if we just back up again, stress and change aren't bad things in the appropriate doses. We know what the doses are. We talked about those. It's not really about the change. It's about how fast is it coming, and in what's the spirit of the change that it's in. Now, obviously, we're in a really chaotic, intense time of unpredictable change right here in the U.S. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, Russell Vought, right now the director of the United States Office of Management and Budget, said recently that he wants to put federal employees into trauma. Now, I don't even know what to say about that, folks. I just don't. I don't know what to say about a human being who intentionally wants to traumatize other human beings. I'll just leave that there for a second, but that's apparently the intention from this administration, is to basically traumatize people around them, or that are dependent on them, in order to, and the way we do that is like with rapid fire, unpredictable pressure and change, right? So that creates a lot of stress and trauma in the system. Now, in developmental psychology, like this type of behavior that's going on right here with this wanting to traumatize people, like this creates unhealthy or kind of disorganized attachment kind of issues for children. And we know that then those lead to adverse childhood consequences and experiences, which leads to developmental trauma. And we know that's linked to lifelong health problems for children as they become adults. So there's firm links between rapid change, unpredictable change, trauma, and terrible outcomes for people, just terrible, horrible outcomes, health outcomes for people. So, with that said, what are we going to do about it, right? What are we going to do about it? Well, we're huge proponents here at the Somatic Coaching Academy about doing our daily core centering practices, and those are critically important, all right? And oftentimes, like, those things are just in situations like this, where we are right now, with unpredictable change coming at us all the time. Like, we're going to make the change, we're not going to make the change. We're going to do it, we're going to pull it back. We're going to do it this much, we're not going to do it that much. Then some people don't have to change, but we have to change. Like, all that chaos around that just further kind of does not allow the nervous system to make its adaptations to what's going on. So we're just under a barrage of it all the time. And when we do our daily somatic practices that we do here, right, they're wonderful for balancing and rejuvenating the nervous system. They're critical for that. However, when the outside world is incredibly chaotic, remember we talked about, if you're in an unsafe environment, you have to have a higher ratio of actually 7-to-1 than if you're in a safe environment of just 3-to-1. Well, guess what, folks? We are living in a highly kind of unpredictable, globally, definitely nationally unsafe environment right now, which means that we have to be able to uptick our level of recovery. But honestly, is there enough time every single day to do that? Do we have the energy to do that every day? Because we feel like we're on treadmills, just trying to keep our heads above water. And so the somatic practices, the core centering, are critical to help keep our heads above water. If we weren't doing them, we would drown. So we have to keep doing them. So find those somatic practices, find those somatic exercises that are really important to help you keep your head afloat, stay above water, keep yourself healthy. Now, we also have to recognize that when the world is chaotic, we have to find ways to really go deeper into healing and supporting our nervous system. So what my plan for the year is to really go deep into what we call resets, into these deep nervous system resets, because on a daily practice, it usually doesn't add up enough. Again, it's barely enough to kind of keep ourselves swimming. But when we take opportunities during the year to go deep into resetting our nervous system, that's what's required from here, really, I believe, for the next at least 4 years. Because you heard the president, like, this is just getting started. They're just getting started with the rate of dysfunctional, chaotic, destructive change that's going on. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. Again, it's the rate and the intensity and the duration of what we're under, and that's just compounding into our nervous systems. So it's really, we need to do these planned resets. So what makes a reset is kind of what I want to chat just a little bit about now, because there are qualities to doing a really deep nervous system reset that if you don't have these qualities in place, you're really not doing that deep reset in the nervous system. So one of the really first things is you have to feel safe there. It has to be a level of really real, tangible felt safety, because if we're not feeling like we're safe in the environment we're in, our nervous system cannot let itself down and it can't heal itself. If our nervous system is hypervigilant, if it's really jacked up, if it's really on alert, it can't go through that healing kind of cycle that has to go through. So wherever you're doing your reset period, you need to feel safe. Absolutely. That's like the very first step. The next thing when you're in a reset period is that you need to not have to take care of anyone else's basic needs. In other words, you're not making sure other people are fed. You're not making sure other people are clothed. You're not making sure other people's needs are taken care of. So that's a part of the reset. Like you cannot be taking care of other people's needs. And there's even a bonus replenishment resetting if your needs are being taken care of by somebody else. Okay. So that's another important part of this deep nervous system reset. Okay, now the next one is no work activities. So whatever it is you do for work, like during this reset period, you can't be checking your phone, checking your email, getting back to clients, checking in on patients, whatever it is, like that can't happen. You have to be a complete kind of disconnect from what your ordinary everyday routine consists of around your work activities. So you have to kind of separate from that. So that's the next one. Next thing is a lot of time in nature. So we know like being in nature, plenty of studies to show that just looking at the green, I'm looking outdoors because I have like trees and a lake right out here. But when you look at the greenage, when you look around, look at plants, just that vibrant life around you can actually replenish the nervous system. So time in nature is critical as a deep part of this reset. Nourishing food, really important to have really good, healthy, nourishing food, also in appropriate doses, right? So we're not overeating it, but it's got to be healing, nourishing food. Nourishing people. So if you're doing a reset with people, people also have to be nourishing around you. In other words, they have to be people who support your reset period, support your not even really like your growth I'm talking about, just support your capacity to relax and feel connected and feel safe and feel engaged. And so that's what I mean by nourishing people. Got to have daily somatic practices as a part of whatever your reset period is. If you're doing somatic practices every day during your reset, because this is the medicine, folks. Like this is the medicine that heals your nervous system when you do these somatic practices, like core centering is what we teach here at the Somatic Coaching Academy. Now, these reset periods need to be at least 5 days long. Ooh, so now you're like, oh gosh, can I do that? Well, how can't you do that? Is my question. Like, if you're going to survive not only this year, next year, the year after that, the year after that, how are you going to do this without deeply resetting your nervous system? I've seen this happen before. We saw it during the COVID pandemic, where healthcare professionals like dug in to support all the people around them, and after about 10 months, 12 months, 18 people, the massive burnout rate. Health professionals like just dropping off, leaving the workforce, couldn't do it anymore because they'd never had a reset period, just on and on and on and on and on, demanding more of themselves and being more demanding on them. So that's really kind of what we're in for again, by the way, folks, is this type of period where if we're not planning for these deep reset periods, you know, 6, 10, 12, 18 months from now, watch out what's going to happen. Like muscling through it is just not going to work. Okay, so at least 5 days long. And then also there needs to be an intention setting as a part of the reset. Have to have a very conscious intention about how you want to enter into the reset period, and then how you want to be able to evolve and come back out of the reset period. So that's all of those are really critical. I already have 3 planned for this year. I already have 3 reset periods planned for this year. And our very first one that we're doing is at Kripalu, May 18th through 22nd for our somatic transformation fundamentals, or I'm sorry, somatic practice essentials, somatic practice essentials certification program with core centering, where we will be going deep into a reset period at Kripalu. So there, of course, will be some talking and some teaching and those sorts of things. But this experience meets every one of these deep resets. And Ani and I are planning to basically format this whole program around a deep neurological reset so that we can learn to do that for ourselves and then basically help our students at Kripalu, this core centering training, take this information, bring it back out in the world, and lead their clients in these deep reset periods as well. Because again, this is how we're going to not only get through this next 4 years, but it's how we're going to thrive beyond this 4 years as well. So happening at Kripalu, and then I have two more. We're going to be, Ani and I are going to be going into the woods for a paddle trip for 2 weeks. And again, it meets all of these processes. And then I've got another one in the fall that I'm doing at a retreat center as well with a lovely organization that I love being a part of. So I've got 3 planned. I'm hoping to get one more in there as well. I just got to kind of look at my calendar to get it sorted, but I have at least 3 of these deep reset periods happening this year on top of my daily somatic practices that I do. So if this is something that was intriguing for you, it really kind of got something stimulated for you, and you want to kind of think about more of these deep reset programs, please reach out, tag us here, tag us in one of the comments, Systematic Coaching Academy. Consider thinking about joining us at Kripalu to get a really deep reset, understand how this works for you so you can bring it to other people if that's something you're so inclined to do as well. And thanks so much for joining me for this live today, and we'll look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.